And tonight we get the honor of making a presentation celebrating the Book Mine. The mayor regrettably is not here tonight. Hopefully she's enjoying her birthday weekend. In lieu of that, I would like to present this statement from her. There's a powerful saying in business: at the end of the day, customers don't necessarily buy what you do, they buy why you do it. I believe this resonates deeply with the owners of the Book Mine. Tonight, we honor this remarkable business and its proprietors with the mayoral certificate of recognition for 50 years of dedication and their loving contributions to the community they treasure. Reaching 50 years in business in a small town is an incredible achievement, especially for a bookstore that has thrived against all odds of online shopping and large chain stores. Sisters Bertie and Gail have been vital to our town, hosting inspiring cultural events, community meetings, and book signings over the years. Their store is more than just a business. It is a beloved landmark in Cottage Grove. Let us celebrate their unwavering friendship and the lasting impact they have had on our community. And join with me. You would come to the front. This evening, we're also joined by representatives from the Lane Regional Air Protection Agency. We have a presentation and report. Welcome.
I think this is working. You guys hear me? Before I get going, I just want to say that in my family, growing up, my parents always prioritized when we were visiting a town to stop at the local bookstore just to go in and grab a book or something. So congratulations. I think that those are real valuable components to any community. So I'm really grateful that Cottage Grove has plenty of that. But hello, my name is Travis Knutson. I'm the Executive Director for the Lane Regional Air Protection Agency, and I am really happy and pleased to have the opportunity to engage and talk a little bit about LRAPA, how we service Cottage Grove, how we service Lane County, as well as engage with questions and comments from the council. Thank you so much. As the presentation gets going here, I do want to introduce Matt Sorensen. He is a Public Affairs Manager also here, and wanted to point out that he's joining us with today as well. Just as a note too, there's lots of clicking for animation, so we'll teamwork this together. So if you want to hit the next slide for me, please, I appreciate that. Thank you. So just want to start off to talk a little bit about LRAPA from a 101 perspective. So we are a local organization that's countywide. We protect air quality in Lane County, essentially implementing the Clean Air Act here locally, which includes within Cottage Grove. We're protecting to public health is our mission, and we do that through protecting the environment, particularly the air. We do that through monitoring, implementing programs to assure that our air quality is improving and being protected as time goes on. We have monitors throughout Lane County, 8 of them, and a network of 100 purple air sensors, which provide more local monitoring to the particular community of interest beyond our 8. Next slide, please. And I think an important component here is that we are local. We are the local benefit. We have the local perspective in mind, and we're able to make sure that the governance and the items that are taking place here in Lane County are meeting that local perspective and that local need as opposed to a state or federal perspective. Next slide, please. So I'll say that LRAPA has been in the community in Lane County for quite some time. There's a couple components, you could say, challenges in the past that we were a key contributor to helping to resolve. The first being back in the 1960s and 70s, where field burning and wigwam burning was a big source of air pollution. We were a part of the effort to find better ways to use some of that wood debris. What are other places that may be able to go? What are other mechanisms that can be utilized to make sure that it's being used in a way that's not creating air pollution, which was helping to bring businesses into Lane County, such as Kingsford or even Rexius, to take, here's this woody material, instead of burning it, how else might we be able to use it, bring some businesses to town and have an economic benefit to our region. That was an accomplishment that LRAPA helped to support back in the early 70s. And from there, from a field burning, wigwam burner issue, air quality became a little bit more of a wood stove challenge. You want to hit the next slide, please. In 1978, wood stoves in residential communities was about 12% usage. By the time we got to 1985, it was about 32%. So the expansion of wood stove usage across Oregon in general created a new source of air pollution that we were seeing, which LRAPA's role and responsibility was, how can we improve the air quality? How can we provide wood that burns a little bit cleaner, puts less smoke into the air, maybe exchange wood stoves for ones that are more efficient, and help to really address that issue here in Lane County. Go ahead to the next slide, please. A new problem or a new challenge, you could say, from an air quality perspective is wildfire smoke, which has unfortunately undermined a lot of the efforts and the success that we have seen from a regional air pollution control authority, as we're seeing smoke be put into the air every summer with wildfires in the Pacific Northwest. Next slide, please. So what we do, LRAPA broadly, is we implement the Clean Air Act locally. If you want to click forward. So that authority begins under the Environmental Protection Agency, and then the work to implement the Clean Air Act is passed down one more time to the state level, which is held by the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. And under that is the Lane Regional Air Protection Agency. And so I can understand that there's like, 3 different layers of governance there. But each layer you get in, you get more of that local perspective, more of that local understanding of what the desires, needs, and preferences are. And as a local governance, we do a better job at meeting those local needs, preferences, and desires. And an example of that, if you want to hit next for me. So here are all of the permitted sources across Cottage Grove that benefit from that local perspective. So Cottage Grove Lumber, Weyerhaeuser, Fox Lumber, Starfire Lumber, those are sawmills here in Cottage Grove that, instead of having to talk with Salem about the work that they're doing, they get to talk with us who are located in Springfield. So we have a lot more opportunity to hear what they're needing, what they're working on, come out and visit their site and help them navigate the federal and state rules and regulations so they can continue to be successful and not be burdened by what can be complex and challenging rules and regulations. Slide, please. So we partner with the state of Oregon, DEQ, as the only air authority in the state of Oregon outside of Lane County. It is the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, Salem, essentially, that's providing the service. The chart you see there on the right, the pink and the blue are 2 different federal or 2 different types of air permits. There's a federal permit, which we refer to as Title V, and there's a state permit. If you want to hit the next, you'll notice there's a little red line that develops. That's what's called a backlog. So how long is a permit waiting before we issue it? When it's needed to be issued, needs to be renewed, and there's a delay to that, it goes on to backlog as we work through the engineering requirements to get that permit together. LRAPA is meeting the goal that is set by the EPA. The green bar is the state service that is provided outside of Lane County, where there's more backlog and more challenge for businesses to go through the rules and regulations so they can get on with their work and participate in the business that they are doing. Next slide, please. So one of the benefits too of LRAPA's approach is we have our own fee structure. I'm gonna hit the next slide. So here's a graph here. There's 3 bullet points. If you can just go and click through those bullet points and they'll pull them up. But I think the real take home here that I want to point out is this graph. The blue line is El Rapa's fee increase. We set fees and they rise by 4% annually. Outside of Lane County, businesses have to follow the DEQ fee structure, which is the red line you see there. Their approach is not an annual set standard. It's a when we think we need it type approach of increasing fees, which can result to, as an example, in 2020, statewide permitting fees went up by 70%. And I think the local perspective is that can be really challenging for local businesses to have their plan for the next year and then suddenly see a much greater fee so they can continue to hold their permit and do their business. El Rapa's approach, I think we're proud of in the sense that we provide much more stability and ability for businesses to be successful and not see added fees unnecessarily or unexpectedly. On the not so much the business perspective side of thing, but the personal residential side of things, we offer monitoring across Lane County that without El Rapa, we would not have nearly as much monitoring. A service we offer is we can leverage some of the monitoring stations that we have in our area, which is 8 that's pictured there on Lane County. Next slide. The things that we monitor for is particulate matter, which is essentially smoke. Also surface ozone during the summertime when it's hot, we can get this secondary combustion take place. It's called ozone. It forms in the atmosphere when it's sunny hot. And also we look for hazardous air pollutants, which are a type of more chemically sort of minded pollutants like formaldehyde or benzene. We also monitor for that in Lane County. Next slide, please. This here is a monitor of El Rapa's monitor at Cottage Grove in the what's referred to as the shop. That's where we have that set, and it's been there for many years. It monitors for PM10 and PM25. Next slide, please. And then what you see here, I mentioned as I started that we've installed over 100 Purple Air sensors across the county. So Purple Air sensors are not the government level monitoring that's costly and expensive and has a lot of work to maintain and update. It's more of a commercially available form of monitoring that is really good in filling out some of those gaps that are larger, more expensive, but much more accurate monitors don't quite cover. Next. So of course, one of the things that we do as a government is try to work to improve air quality. So we monitor the air quality so we can see our success. Are we doing a good job? Are our programs effective in reducing air pollution and keeping the air clean? I think living in Lane County, a real benefit to us, a benefit to Cottage Grove is the fact that we have remarkably clean air. Not all parts of the world are able to make that claim. And I think part of a wonderful thing about the United States of America is we do care about our air and we work to protect it. Unfortunately, though, you can see these lines are all going down below a red line. That's sort of the standard that the federal government sets. But if you want to hit the next slide, there's a component that I mentioned of wildfires that's becoming an increasing concern here in Lane County. If you want to hit the next, please. So the graph I showed before was when we removed all the wildfire data from the graph. And so this is with all of that wildfire data put back in. And you can see that that red line's the same red line that was on the graph a little bit before, but now we're far above it. And this is what communities in Lane County are having to breathe because of wildfire smoke. And in my view, as the director, if we're as a local air pollution control authority, our role is to try to prevent or reduce air pollution from going into the air. But in the circumstance of wildfires, where our ability from a programmatic perspective is limited in how we can tell the forest to stop putting smoke in the air. And so in those circumstances, I view our role is, instead of pollution reduction, how can we help communities avoid exposure to pollution so they don't have to breathe what is harmful particulate matter that has an impact on our families, on our health, and on our futures. Next slide, please. I think a big service we offer too that Cottage Grove is able to benefit from is our air quality complaints. In fact, we had a complaint this morning from someone in Cottage Grove that we were able to respond to. There's a look at all the complaints across Lane County, which you can see it's far and wide, and we go out to Florence, we go down to Cottage Grove, we go out to Oak Ridge. Over the last kind of about 12 rolling months, we've had 19 Cottage Grove complaints that we responded to that without our services, those usually fall on the municipality to address those complaints and handle in some way, shape, or form that we are able to take off the responsibility of Cottage Grove. Next slide, please. So we, in a year, respond to about 600 or so complaints. 590 was in the last 3 months, or the last 12 months, excuse me. A lot of those is from outdoor burning, which is something that's more common when you get out more in the rural parts of the county. So Cottage Grove outdoor burning is something that many residents utilize because we have a lot of growth all season long, and burning it is an effective and fair way of managing that debris. We set programs on, okay, today there's an inversion, and if you have smoke that's going into the air, it's going to stay at the surface of the earth. It's going to have an impact on the air quality and people's health. So instead, let's just do those burns on days when we know the smoke is going to rise into the air and it's not going to settle at the earth and bother anybody. And that is a part of our service. We look at the days from a meteorological perspective and say, you can start burning in this window, or this is a day where maybe we don't do any of that burning because we have an inversion that's going to last with us all day. Another component too, I think is important to point out here to the council is we have like our own fee structure, our own titles. So when there's an enforcement instance, such as needing to have a conversation with a source for violating a permit condition, or a resident from an asbestos perspective was not doing their abatement correctly and creating a hazard in someone's home, we can take an enforcement, essentially file a ticket to someone. In 2024, those totals are about $21,000. On a typical year, that's about $50,000 in enforcement that we do pay or can assess. And I think a real benefit to that, though, is our enforcement dollars by state statute go to the Lane County General Fund. Outside of Lane County, if there's an enforcement action that's paid by DEQ, those dollars don't go to the county that enforcement took place in. They go to the state treasurer. And then another component on top of those enforcement dollars, next slide, please, is El Rapa has what's called a supplemental environmental projects program, which means if there is an enforcement action that's taken place, those who are needing to pay that assessment have an opportunity to choose to provide those dollars to an environmental beneficial project in the county. You want to hit the next for me, please? Keep going. There's a couple more that'll show up. So what these can look like is programs like if you have yard debris and you're looking to support the yard debris, or if there's trash and dumps that needs to be addressed, or from a asbestos abatement perspective, there's an RV that needs to be addressed and be cleaned up. We have a process to accept applications for what those programs may be. And then in an enforcement setting, those who are facing penalties can elect to support some of these environmental projects across the county. And then one more. So some of those examples of what some supplemental environmental projects are, things like wood waste, yard debris programs, informational campaigns, household hazardous waste removal programs. These are the types of things that could be funded under our supplemental environmental project that El Rapa brings as a opportunity to Lane County, to places like Cottage Grove that outside of Lane County, opportunities don't exist quite to the full degree. Next slide. And so that's what I was hoping to share with council this evening, as well as be open to taking questions or comments. I do think that as a local government agency, we best serve that local perspective. We have more time and interest in understanding what those needs are and helping those businesses or those individuals navigate the rules and regulations as they may be, so air quality remains clean and people can get on with their day and not be burdened or slowed down by what can be rules and regulations from federal and state perspectives. Thank you.
Any questions? Councilor Lammerman?
Council President, Council, thank you. Couple quick questions. Why aren't the other counties doing anything like El Rapa?
There were two other air agencies that existed, one up along the Columbia River Gorge, and then another that was just to the north of Salem. Those were unable to survive over the years. The story, as I understand it, is DEQ had an interest in state authority being maintained by themselves and was initially not as open to the idea of local government organizations doing the work of implementing the Clean Air Act. And through that period of time, El Rapa managed to remain successful with county commissioners and our local partners, including the city of Cottage Grove, to support us and keep us around. So that authority remained here locally as opposed to in Salem.
And then with the the fees that El Rapa has for permits and all that, do companies like Weyerhaeuser and the other mills and stuff, do they have to pay you permit fee, well, El Rapa permit fees on top of DEQ? Or is it one or the other?
Yes, that's a great question. So it is instead of. So we essentially do the exact same work that DEQ would do in the space of air, but we just do that for Lane County. So that fee structure that I was showing you, that's not an additive, that is instead of. And so our fee structure is a little bit more affordable than what DEQ is by design. We want to have, from an economic development perspective, we don't want Lane County to be more expensive. We don't necessarily want Lane County to be aggressively less expensive from an inequity across the state, but we can manage to be just a little bit more affordable. And we have more time, energy, and capacity to sit down with a source like Weyerhaeuser and say, you have a project that you're doing. That's really exciting. Here are the rules and regulations from an air perspective that you should understand before you set out on this project, so you can plan a little bit better and have less of a challenge as you go through that. And this is something that we do with businesses all the time as they're planning their projects or coming to us wanting to adjust their permits. Outside of Lane County, you can still get that engagement from the state, but on the graph that was sort of showing the permit backlogs, they're a lot busier and don't have as much energy and attention, I think, to provide that specific service to those businesses.
And then at the other end of the spectrum, if there's a penalty or an issue that arises that causes a fine or something like that, are they having to, at the same time, only pay El Rapa, or are they paying El Rapa and then also facing fines from DEQ?
The only way that they would face fine DEQ is if DEQ was facing a fine that was a land or water quality issue, but in the space of air, we have that authority. So if we took issue in an enforcement space, that would not allow DEQ to then step in and then also take enforcement. We do that work on behalf of DEQ. And it can sometimes even get into the federal level. So if you have a Title V permit, that is a federal permit, which means we are delegated that EPA authority to issue that permit. So if there's an enforcement space on those Title V permits, that connects to the EPA. As a local agency, we can have that more nuanced conversation with the source on that enforcement space before then it might be referred to the EPA, to where hands are a little less able to control or steer where things go. So I think is another benefit to a service that we offer, is that more nuanced understanding of the local situation and acting accordingly. Yeah, so Matt pointed out a good thing that if there is a fine that's assessed, that does not come to El Rapa. That goes to, in Lane County, to the Lane County General Fund. Outside of Lane County, those fines would go to the state general fund. But then too, we have a supplemental environmental project, meaning if there was a need in Cottage Grove from an environmental perspective, we could take that information when we're in an enforcement space with the source. We can't require that they fund those projects, but we can say, if you would like these dollars, instead of going to Lane County General Fund, they can fund any of these environmental projects across the county as just more of a way to keep those dollars to that local perspective and that local need.
And last two questions real quick. So then is El Rapa, you had mentioned the forest fires being a really big issue, which we all know how the holiday fire went. It was hellacious, but that being said, is El Rapa doing anything lobbying wise to try to work with the state on timber management or anything along those lines?
We're engaged with both federal and local levels on a number of different things on that front. From a forest mitigation perspective, if there's a big recognition that's being had, is the need for prescribed fire as a way to manage the forest more appropriately. There's been some hesitancy from an air regulatory perspective that says that's putting smoke in the air. There's no such thing as good smoke. If you breathe smoke, there's a health aspect to it, a public health aspect to it. But that's where, from our perspective, and slowly in time now seeing DEQ be a bit more favorable to the how can we utilize prescribed burning in a way where we can control when we put fire on the forest. We can know the wind's blowing this direction on Thursday, it's blowing that direction on Friday. We need to make sure that we do all this work on Thursday, because on Friday it's going to be blowing in a different direction. And so as a local agency, we can steer our ship a little bit more quickly, like a tugboat, as opposed to the big regulatory state and federal needs. So we can recognize those ongoing needs. And from our implementing federal rules in Lane County, we can be a bit more nimble on what those needs are. An example that I'll point out is, so when we had the January ice storm, it had a real big impact on the city of Springfield and Thurston. And so they came to LRAPA and they said, we would like to have LRAPA's rules that says you can't burn some of these trees to just have that go away for a little bit, for a couple of weeks, so we can burn some of this material that has just fallen down, and we cannot allow it to become or prevent it from becoming a hazard to our community. That is a federal rule in the Code of Federal Register that says, no, Springfield, you can't do this. However, we, as the local authority, are able to go through the process of filing a variance on that need. And the city of Springfield was able to have more burning opportunities because of the extingent needs, which was there was a big, huge ice storm. Without LRAPA, the city of Springfield would have to have a conversation with Salem to try to get the advocacy at the federal level to make those adjustments. It's just a variance. It was only for a couple months. But that's just another component of we implement the Clean Air Act in Lane County. So if there's needs to have some nuance there or some adjustments, we are more effective at being able to advocate and see success on those needs.
Councilor Settlemeyer.
It's been really fun going to those meetings that LRAPA has, the council meeting. And one of the things that I'm really aware of is how valuable you've been able to be to the community of Oak Ridge. I hope Cottage Grove is never the next Oak Ridge, but talk about a friend as far as being able to steer them to grants that greatly benefit the rebuilding in that area and preventive steps that they really need. And so when I look at that, I look at how close we were to being the next Oak Ridge in the holiday fire and some of those fires that came down. And yes, I'm happy that you're around.
Thank you, Council Settlemeyer. To expand and provide a little bit more context on that. So when I had the presentation, there was like a red line when I was talking about the wildfire smoke. Under EPA rules and regulations, we are allowed to take that wildfire smoke away and say, please don't hold this data against the community, because if you're above that red line, it effectively becomes nearly impossible to issue an industry air permit for those air sheds that are identified above that line, which in 2024, earlier last year, that line was lowered again. Because if you're above that line, no permits can easily be issued. And Oak Ridge was in a situation where they were called non-attainment with the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. They were above that federal line. And so from an economic development standpoint, that was a huge thing for the city. And so our role as the air regulatory authority is how can we improve air quality in Oak Ridge to get it below this line? And what it turns out for Oak Ridge is it wasn't an industry driven thing. It was wood stoves and the terrain of Oak Ridge, which is there in a bowl. And in the wintertime, it is cold and electricity is unreliable when it snows. There's no natural gas. So the community has a reliance on wood stoves and wood heat. And so because of that, when it's cold, there's an inversion. Everybody's using their wood stoves. There's an air quality issue. So because of that, they received access to a grant fund through the EPA where LRAPA was able to bring about $7 million to the Oak Ridge community to take an old wood stove that's uncertified, exchange it for a new wood stove that is certified, that burns cleaner, to create a program that helps to provide dry season wood that will burn more cleanly to old and vulnerable people in the community, as well as install ductless heat pumps on homes. So that way there's a secondary form of heat, which kind of on the wildfire side of things now provides cooling in the summer when it's hot and we're asking everybody to close their doors and windows because it's smoky outside. So that's part of our service, is recognizing like, ooh, there's an issue here. How can we seek some of that funding, be it state or federal funding, so we can solve those problems here at a local level? Prineville, also Klamath Falls has a very similar issue to Oak Ridge of being above the national ambient air quality standards. And it's Salem that's trying to put those programs in place. DEQ can do that, but will they do it to the level of need and nuance that a local government agency can provide to a local partner? I'm of the mindset that I don't think that they would be able to provide that service quite as well.
Thank you for joining us this evening and for the information.
Thank
We
you,
have your
Council.
contact information as well, and presume you're reachable. If there's further questions.
Yes, I would appreciate sitting down, engaging with any one of you to talk about LRAPA and what we do for Lane County. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next presentation is from the Warren H. Daugherty Aquatic Center. We'll receive a report. Shane.
So last year when I came down and spoke to the council, I started with the joke and nobody laughed. So I'm just going to start tonight. I want to thank the city council for its longstanding support of the Aquatic Center. The longstanding partnership between South Lane School District and the city of Cottage Grove is a model envied by many communities across Oregon. We're friends. This partnership was forged over 75 years ago, when those who came before us recognized, especially in the 40s, when boat dams were built, that this community of lakes and rivers, this is a community of lakes and rivers, and as such, its leaders have a moral and ethical obligation to teach every child how to swim. That is why I came home to Cottage Grove, and I'm committed to do so. It's been my life's work teaching people how to swim. So these are the community programs at the pool. A lot of great ones. We'll go to the next one. Here's our instructors. You know, it's people really passionate about what they do. And I've been a teacher for many years. It looks like the people in the class are really benefiting from it. That's what community use looks like. That's the therapy pool right there, the middle picture. And then the big lap pool. It's a big pool, a lot of water, you know. This is our hours of the community when we're open. Okay. So these are how many people from the community use the pool every month. So that's our community membership, the green on the right. And when I got to Cottage Grove, like I've been here like a year and a half. The use the year before I got there was 16,000, and then, you know, when I got here, it was like 21,000, and so I think last year we're at 27,000. Yeah, 27,000. So our use is going up. That's a good sign. I'm proud of that. Okay. So who uses the pool the most every month? By a wide margin, our seniors utilize the pool. 62% December, 1,047 visits. That's doing really good. September of this last fall, you know, 1,088 visits, 67%. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Senior citizens came to rely on the therapy pool at the CG Library and Community Center. Before closing the therapy pool at the library and community center, the city leadership negotiated a verbal agreement with the South Lane School District. This agreement was to include a therapy pool in the Warren H. Daugherty Aquatic Center remodel, which was completed in 2019. Additionally, this agreement has been explained to me that financial support would be a reoccurring line item in the city's annual proposed budget. And the city has always honored this. Okay, thanks. So these are the numbers. These are the funds, how much it costs for community use, and how much, city contribution and what we're going to take in fees. And so we're doing pretty good. I feel really good about those numbers, and we're only going to get better. We're only going to get better. Cost recovery, how much do we take in as compared to our overall budget? I have their operational costs. Our biggest cost is our staff, and we're not overstaffed. I lifeguard. I'm the senior operator at the pool. I manage the pool, and I teach kids how to swim. And I don't sit in my office all the time. I'm out there working with our young people in Cottage Grove, and that's how we try to save money, and we'll try to do better. For the future, it's my intention to build an infrastructure at the pool so that we can host more invitational swimming meets. I think that's the next page. But so my initial goal is 9 months, but I'd like to get that up, that invitational. An invitational is where you have multiple teams come to the pool and swim. Get that up to 12 months. We can look at slowly increasing fees incrementally over time. Increasing fees is a very slippery slope. If it gets too busy, too expensive to come to the pool and go swimming, then that's trouble. So you have to find where the best place is. City's dollars are spent serving the community, much like other city agencies, like the police department and the fire department. The pool teaches people how to swim and improves quality of life for people of all ages. So this is about what we hosted at the meet this year. When they come and swim in our pool, the people eat, stay. Okay, we had 3 invitationals, including the state YMC championships at our pool this year. We had 8 dual meets. We hosted 10 water polo games, including the district tournament. The water polo tournament was like 7 teams. The water polo team had their best season. I've only been coaching a team for about 1.5 years. Our women and men's team, they won the district championship for the first time in many, many years. Man, it was awesome. It was unbelievable that day. Nobody was going to beat us that day. I'm telling you. And currently, after school, there's approximately 50 students, 3rd grade through high school, participating in swimming and water polo. The team's improvement and record is a reflection of community programs for our students in the community. So. All students in Cottage Grove learn how to swim. The #1 safety rule, water safety rule, above all else, learn how to swim. Okay, that's the most important one. We've had 7,049 single lessons were given to school children, and 2,086 single lessons were administered to the community children. They've learned very quickly. Me and my staff are pretty good teachers. Okay. Swimming gives young people in Cottage Grove an opportunity for recreation, fun, and enjoyment in a safe environment. If we don't give our young people that opportunity, trust me, they will find other things to do, sometimes not always the right thing. There's a lot of opportunity in aquatics. I'm a living example of that. I started as a lifeguard at age 15. I don't think I started working at the Cottage Grove pool till I was 16. 16. But there's all these things that you can learn and go on and do. Water safety instructor, the military opportunity, swimming instruction. I'm a pool operator. I've managed many pools, couple, 2, 3 in my life. And our country is an all-time low for certified trained aquatic people. It's a great thing to get our young people in. We have a lifeguard training class coming up in June. We have 23 young people signed up to take that course and save lives in the water. So in closing, I stand before you today on behalf of the 27,000 single visits at the pool, of the people who used the pool last year, to continue your support and uphold the friendship that we have between South Lane school district in the great city of Cottage Grove, which I'm proud to be here. I love Cottage Grove. So thank you. That wasn't too long, was it? Okay, good.
Do we have any questions? Counselor Lemmerman.
Council President, Council, thank you. Just a couple quick questions. What's the pool doing to try to increase community engagement with the youth?
Well, I'm trying to get more kids swimming on the team after school. And
So like outside of the school, just the general public, what kind of things are you guys trying to do to get the general community there versus just the schools primarily?
well, we said we could get more information out. I'm still learning what the best way to do it. I've only been on the job for 1.5 years, but we could use the paper. I know the radio. I've spoken on the radio. Cameron's great. So Cameron interviewed me, tried to sell the pool everywhere I go. When I buy a cup of coffee, I always say, hey, you know how to swim? Go up to the pool. But we could be better at that, and I will try to improve on that.
Thank you.
Counselor Merida.
You had an association with legendary swim coach Bud Taylor, right?
Well, I've done pretty well in my life. I never compared myself to Bud, never. I'd lose every time, but he trained me, and he's my mentor and he's my friend, and he really helped me a lot in my life.
So when the pool came to town, that was 1955, and it was, I think, a 10-year effort to community fundraise to build the pool.
Yeah, and then they put the cover on the pool in 1966, and the idea behind all that was to make sure none of our young people drown in the rivers and lakes around Cottage Grove. Before they put the cover on the pool, they put the kids on a school bus and drive them up to Willam Lane and have them take lessons. And then the people of Cottage Grove said, why don't we just build our own pool? Why don't we put a cover on it? And that's how that happened.
And before the pool came, there was a number of fatalities due to drowning.
I don't know. I'm sure without any aquatic training, I'm sure there were, but I have to check the historical record. Councilor Merida, I'm sure it wasn't well. I mean, there was a problem. That's why they built the pool. So.
Well, we certainly appreciate you taking that mission to heart and pouring.
Well, it's been my life work. It's like, I really care, and it's important. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now is our time to hear from citizens. This is the time for citizen comment. The council will first take comments addressing items that are not listed on the agenda, and that'll be for a maximum of 30 minutes. The council will then take comments addressing action items on the agenda, also for a maximum of 30 minutes. Individual speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer, provide their name, identify whether they are a city resident or not, and their ward, if they are. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less with council approval. Comments regarding any matter scheduled for a public hearing may be provided only during that hearing, and we do have a public hearing tonight. The council will not make any decision based on public comment. However, staff and council may choose to ask questions or comment following the conclusion of citizen comments. And with that, we have one individual signed up to speak on items not on the agenda, and Jimmy Shaper.
Am I on? Okay. Okay, my name's Jimmy Shopper, and I am a Cottage Grove resident living in Ward 2. And I'm speaking tonight as a private citizen, not as a member of the Urban Forestry Committee. I'm speaking really about Main Street landscaping, particularly the growth of the trees at the edge of the sidewalks and their irrigation and drainage management. The situation is rather unique it's complicated, but it's doable if we think ahead and develop the strategy for how we have to manage these trees as they develop. Our biggest problem will be maintaining adequate oxygen levels in the root zone as these trees mature. And that's essential for maintaining the health of the root zone. You have whole ecology there with mycorrhizal fungi, aerobic bacteria, and the root hairs. And then above ground, we have issues with insect pests and primarily wilt diseases, and keeping them at bay by keeping the trees healthy and their own immune systems able to surmount anything that will come by them. And actually, all the disease and pest vectors arrive by truck, like firewood. By way of experience, I've taught irrigation and drainage courses at all levels at university, from associate's degree to PhD in science, technology, and engineering. And I've worked for international engineering firms and equipment manufacturers such as Rainbird on large scale, primarily international landscape developments. Now, as I said again, our Main Street development, it may be small, but it's complicated, but it presents some unique learning and educational opportunities, which helps us to get friends. So we need a smaller budget. Now, what we'll be using the irrigation for is not just to provide water, but to also drive out accumulated carbon dioxide and breathe in necessary oxygen, which is a bit different, but not unique. We have a 100-year list of research done all across the country through land-grant universities on this phenomenon that naturally occurs in various orchards and such. Now, typically the Urban Forestry Committee, we consult and converse directly with City Council, but we do work with city staff and collaborate on, do we have a particular hazard tree or things such as that. This landscape renovation adds a lot to the city, but it actually adds another, because it's unique, it adds some opportunities that we otherwise wouldn't have. So with that, if you know where I am, how to get a hold of me, we can talk.
Thank you, Jimmy. Okay. We have Bruce. Okay, we have comments from Mr. Kelch on items listed on the agenda. And this would be item number 3C, which was the pool.
There we go. Thank you. I just wanted
We can't hear you, Bruce.
to, my audio is clear. Can't hear me? Hello? Testing 1, 2. I'm not muted. Okay. I can try calling in. Don't know what to say. Okay. Can you hear me at all? Or is everybody frozen? All right.
Bruce, will you please try to restart? We've rejoined the meeting. Try speaking to see if we can hear you.
Testing 1, 2.
Perfect. All
Okay.
right, go ahead.
All right. Well, my comments are shorter than the stall there, so I apologize for that. No, I just wanted to say it was a great report on the pool. I think it's a wonderful thing for our community. And there's as a city reviews its budget and the priorities, I'm reminded of a quote that says, "A cynic knows the price of everything, but not the value of anything." And the value part of this, from an economic point of view, the swimming pool is something that people that actually choose to come to our community because they're looking for a rural community that also has a pool. Same with the library. People come and check out the library when they're exploring a possible move to a small town. And we have so many different activities, the cultural activities, the theater activities. I think, but the pool and the library are two things that should be considered in terms of the value that they offer to the community. And it's a quality of life issue for folks because it provides things that they can do that are healthy, both physically and mentally and culturally, to have both those things. So that's my point. And thanks for listening. I'm glad the technology finally worked. Thanks.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, that takes us to our public hearing. Bear with me as I read through an opener. This public hearing is being held to receive public testimony for an ordinance amending the Cottage Grove Municipal Code regarding various sections of Title 14. These proceedings will be recorded. In accordance with state law and city land use procedures, I will summarize tonight's Type 4 legislative procedure and the standards of review. First, staff will review the staff report and identify the applicable substantive criteria from the city's comprehensive plan and/or the state of Oregon statewide planning goals that apply to this proposal. Staff will also review the Planning Commission recommendation on this proposal. Following staff's presentation, we will take public testimony and then return to staff to present any additional material or comments based on the testimony. Following that, council will close the public hearing. Your testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the identified substantive criteria and or other substantive, I believe that's how that's supposed to be said, criteria in the comprehensive plan, development code, or statewide planning goals, which you believe apply to this application. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker or other interested parties the opportunity to respond may preclude an appeal of a decision on this proposal at issue. For anyone wishing to speak, if you are assessing the meeting in person or using video, please raise your hand to be recognized. If you are accessing the meeting using only audio, please announce that you would like to speak. When called upon to speak, you must be recognized by the presiding officer and state your name and address for the public record. We ask that each speaker limit themselves to no more than 3 minutes. Presentations will be timed and you will be informed when your allotted time has expired. All speakers exceeding the time limit will be asked by the presiding officer to immediately conclude their remarks. If you do not finish your presentation, be sure to provide a copy of your statement to staff. Written testimony may be offered and will be considered and made part of the record. In order to minimize repetitive testimony, organizations are encouraged to have only one person speak from the group. Each person may testify only once unless called upon at the request of a council member to respond to a question. Have nobody signed up to speak on this matter. I believe that takes us to staff report. Oh, I hereby open the public hearing.
Thank you, Council President. Councilors, good evening. So the purpose of this public hearing is to receive comments on the proposed amendments of various sections of Title 14 of the Cottage Grove Municipal Code. Staff is proposing these amendments in an effort to come into compliance with Senate Bill 1537, allowing adjustments to housing development. The following chapters and sections of Title 14 of the Cottage Grove Municipal Code are proposed to be amended by this application. Chapter 14.36, Section 14.36.100, Table 14.41.100, and Section 14.41.300. These applications, the adjustments, will be processed as a Type 2 land use application. The request is consistent with the statewide planning goals of Goal 1, Goal 2, and Goal 10. Goal 1 is citizen involvement, Goal 2 is land use planning, and Goal 10 is housing. It is also consistent with the comprehensive plan, as modifications to the comprehensive plan and its adopted implementing documents are expected over time. And there are no modifications to public facility services or transportation networks. They're not proposed nor required at the time to facilitate this code amendment. The Planning Commission held a hearing on the attached ordinance on March 19, 2025, and recommended approval of the draft ordinance to council. Staff's recommendation is adoption and that the public hearing shall.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council? So seeing that there's no public comment or testimony, Councilor Merida.
Thank you, Council President. As on Friday, I asked the question if we could have an explanation of what these changes would entail, and I think that would be good to reflect to the public present that it is going to be a positive thing as far as housing goes in our community.
So these adjustments were required by Senate Bill 1537, basically to help facilitate new development where it might have otherwise been cost prohibitive or just not feasible with the design of the lot, the layout type of thing. For example, side and rear setbacks can be adjusted up to 10% now. Individuals can request up to 10. Another one would be parking minimums up to 100%. There are adjustments to design standards in our code. We do have facade articulation and detailed designs that are required, specifically, like, for example, the detailed designs, you need 6 total. You can actually request an adjustment for up to all of those. And so we have found a lot of individuals with, manufactured dwellings, for example. They don't always meet that articulation or the design standards. This will allow new housing to be developed that will meet the code with these adjustments. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Associate Planner Crow.
Questions? I'll just give one more opportunity. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on the matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Next item is the consent agenda.
Thank you, Council President and councilors. I do want to point out that City Attorney Carrie Conley is online. I know it's kind of tiny and hard to see up there. So if you have questions of her, I'd be happy to promote her to panelist so that you can see and hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane, a motion regarding the consent agenda. Do we have a question, Councilor Lammerman? Oh, so that was the public hearing, kind of the formal process to allow people to make comment. We are going to revisit it under resolutions and ordinances, likely very soon.
Yes, I move that we adopt or approve the consent agenda.
Motion.
I second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Takes us to our first resolution, first and only. Do we have a number for that?
So this is going to be ordinance number 3191.
319. So St. Leonard Lenny Grove, the report.
Thank you, Council President, Councilors. So Council has held a public hearing on the proposed amendments to various sections of Title 14 of the Cottage Grove Municipal Code. As mentioned, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the attached ordinance on March 19, 2025, and recommended approval to Council. After Council deliberation, it is recommended that City Council hold the first vote on the attached ordinance. The ordinance was prepared and has been available for more than 1 week prior to this meeting. This ordinance could be adopted at one meeting. Again, staff is recommending adoption.
Councilor Lammerman.
I move to approve ordinance number 3191, amending the Cottage Grove Municipal Code regarding various sections of Title 14.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Merida,
Aye.
Counselor Settlemeyer,
Aye.
Counselor Wilson,
Aye.
Counselor Urban,
Aye.
Counselor Hink. Aye. Counselor Lammerman.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Business from the City Council. Authorization to participate in cooperative purchasing through Sourcewell to purchase a wastewater pump station for the Cleveland Street Infrastructure Improvement Project. Public Works Director, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Council President, and good evening, Council. So this evening, you have before you an authorization to purchase a pre-packaged sewer lift station. So back earlier this year, the city was awarded $3 million through Senate Bill 1530 to pay for installation of water, sewer, and storm water infrastructure. The state infrastructure award included purchasing a pre-constructed wastewater pump station for the project. The sewer lift station will be located at the west end of Cleveland Street. City staff and branch engineering solicited a proposal from Romtech Inc. for a pre-constructed sewer lift station to the specifications necessary to serve the developable residential and industrial land off of West Cleveland Street. Staff investigated the policies and procedures of the Sourcewell contract and found it to conform with both city and state contracting laws. The city's Sourcewell account number is 99315, and Romtech's Sourcewell contract number is 081721-RMT. Both the city and Romtech are participants in South Sourcewell, allowing the city council to award purchase of the pump station. Notice pursuant to Oregon Revised Statutes 279A.220 and City Rule 137-046-0460 is required, and the ad will be published on May 1st and it will close on May 8th of 2025. So staff recommends to City Council to authorize the city manager to sign the purchase agreement with Romtech to purchase a pre-constructed wastewater pump station for the amount of $409,112 through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Agreement, contract number 081721-RMT, after the comment period closes and resolution of any received protests are addressed. And once again, the cost of this purchase will be funded through the state of Oregon through the Senate Bill 1530 funds, which is being overseen by Business Oregon. Answer any questions if there are any.
Councilor Lammerman.
Council President, Council, thank you. Mr. Stewart, just to be clear for anyone listening, the city is not paying for this. This is coming out of the grant money that was already allocated, correct?
Oh, Council President and Councilor Lammerman, that is correct. It's
Okay.
through the state of Oregon funds.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear for anyone listening.
Councilor Merida.
I think, and furthermore, to clear up, the funds need to be spent within a time limit that ends in June, I believe.
Council President, Councilor Merida, that is correct. Unless the legislature acts during this period and extends the authorization, a further timeline, the money must be spent by June 30th or allocated and spent by June 30th.
Councilor Wilson.
Also, as a further clarification for the public, this is not going to be installed immediately because there are some other things, steps that need to take place, but we do need to purchase the item and have it available for installing.
Council President and Councilor Wilson, that is correct. So we're able to purchase this package facility. It will, once completed, it'll be delivered to the city shop and it'll sit there until we receive land use approvals through Lane County. The portion of land that we would like to install this pump station on is on Lane County governed property outside the urban growth boundary and requires us to receive approval from them. And that'll take a little bit more time than what we have to get it installed. So you are correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I have a question that kind of relates to capacity of a given pump station. So I can think of, there's one on Taylor. Presume is there one on this side of town? Like how big is this one sized in relation to the expected development? The Cleveland Street property, does it expand the capacity for that side of town well beyond? Could you speak to what this will do for us in the future?
Yes, Council President. So we have currently 4 sewer lift stations. There's one on Anthony. There's one over by Fir Grove Cemetery, and there's 2 of them out in the Middlefield estates. And they're utilized to essentially, we like to have the sewage run to our plant via gravity. But there are places that are too low. So essentially a lift station will collect that product at a low point and pump it up into the gravity so that it can be gravity. So in this instance, this sewer lift station will be at the bottom of Cleveland, and it's sized to essentially take all the septage that won't run gravity in our current system in that vicinity. So it'll all collect there and then be pumped up to 6th Street and then gravity all the way to our sewer treatment plant. Essentially, it's being sized by the maximum amount of development for that area within our UGB and city limits that would collect septage from that area. It is very possible that if our UGB expands in the future to the south, maybe 5, 10, 15 years from now, if there's a warrant for it, that this pump station could be upsized to handle additional septage if needed, but it is really designed to handle what we know exists today in the present. I don't have that number present. If you're interested in it, I could get that from our engineers, but they've had to determine what that is to request the pump station to be built. And then you mentioned a couple other pump stations. We have 2 water pump stations that are pressure stations. One is at Taylor. They're at Taylor and Gateway, and the other one is up on Holly Street. And they essentially boost the water pressure to your houses up. So it's really, those 2 stations are really designed for water, and then the other 4 are for sewer lift stations.
Thank you. Councilor Lemmerman.
Sorry, you triggered a question in my mind after Mr. Stewart, you had said that the pump station was basically off of the present numbers. Does that guarantee that once that whole subdivision, the apartments and everything go in, that it would have to be upsized almost right away after those were put in?
Council President and Councilor Lemmerman. So when we designed the parameters for designing that facility. It was utilizing the maximum density and a maximum amount of potential development that would take place on that area. It right now presently what's being proposed, and if the developers purchase it, it's actually going to be developed at a little bit less density. So there's going to be additional capacity that will be available in that pump station.
Entertain a motion. Preferably one suggested. Counselor Lammerman.
I move approval of the agreement of purchase of the Cleveland Street wastewater pump station from Romtech Inc. for $409,112 and direct city manager to sign the agreement subject to expiration of the required notice period and resolution of any received protests.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That takes us to our second item for business from the city council, and that is an appointment of a budget officer. The city is required by ORS 294 to appoint a budget officer either by the governing body or designated by the city charter. The City of Cottage Grove Charter, Chapter 8, Section 33, Item E6 states that the city manager is to prepare and administer the annual city budget. However, it does not specifically appoint the city manager as the budget officer. ORS 294 goes on to state that the budget officer shall prepare or supervise the preparation of the budget document. The budget officer is required to present a balanced budget to the budget committee for their consideration. A budget message is prepared annually to accompany the proposed budget. The recommendation is that we consider appointing the city manager to as the budget officer. Councilor Lammerman.
Council President, Council, I move to appoint city manager Mike Sauerwein as the budget officer.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Okay, item C, City Council Subcommittee. To facilitate the selection process for the Budget Committee, it has been customary to create a subcommittee of council members who will interview applicants applying for the Budget Committee. So on Monday, April 21st, 2025, 3 council members expressed their interest in volunteering for the subcommittee in response to the city recorder's call for volunteers. The recommendation is that the council review and approve the mayor's recommendation to create an interview subcommittee and appoint subcommittee appointments. And those who have volunteered are listed in the motion. And for clarification, the role of the chair, is that appointed by the presiding officer customarily? No.
What I've seen customarily is at the time that council's volunteering to be on the subcommittee, then at that same time, there's a volunteer to be the chair, and then mayor would make that recommendation.
Okay. I think Mr. Merryday and I have served as chairs in the past. So if the council sees fit and makes the motion, would nominate Councilor Wilson to chair that. Do we have a motion from the council?
I move to create a subcommittee of council members to interview budget committee applicants and accept the mayor's recommendation that the subcommittee consists of councilors Irvin, Merryday, and Wilson.
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Understand we'll be getting right to work on that. So Sotomayor. Does that need to be in the motion? Or maybe now a separate?
Certainly wouldn't hurt to have it in the motion, but I also viewed that it was, recommended by the chair. So if Counselor Hink would like to amend her motion to include, I believe you said, Counselor Wilson to be appointed as the chair.
Or do we need since we've already voted on it, do we need to just create a separate motion?
Yeah, let's just do that. Yep.
Good. Be like, I would move to appoint Counselor Wilson as the chair of the Budget Committee Selection Subcommittee.
I move to appoint Counselor Wilson as the chair for the Budget Committee Subcommittee.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, and I apologize. Okay, well, that takes us to concerns of council. Councilor Merida?
It's not a concern, it's an opportunity. On Friday, a group of CORA representatives, that's the Coalition for Recreation, Arts and Athletics, of which our Bohemia Park is a member, met with Representative Lively, and he gave us a lot of encouragement. It is also a time that's going to be very competitive. So the more support the council can express and citizens can express of funding the entry park features that were deleted due to rising cost through this coalition effort, the better the chances of our success. So I know we have by consensus sent a letter to all the Lane County delegation, all the representatives of Lane County. I would ask that we could additionally send the similar message to the members of the Capital Construction Committee and the Ways and Means Committee, if that is acceptable to the members of the council. Great. And then also an opportunity to go to Salem next, not this coming Friday, but the 9th, I believe. I know there is an agenda setting meeting that time, but we are not required to speak, just to show up in mass. So if there's, I believe the hearing is at 8 o'clock, 8 a.m., so it would be an early trip. So anybody that's available, including community members, to go to Salem, we could Zoom in and establish quorum and participate in the budget. I mean, in the audit, okay, one more time, the agenda setting, and without interrupting the hearing, just that we need warm bodies. They have some designated speakers, so we won't be required to speak, just to show support. So if there's anybody that's available for that trip up, that would be great, including members of the Bohemia Foundation. So if you could put feelers out, and in any constituents, that might be willing to write a letter to any of the representatives, would also be a huge help. Thank you so much.
Kids with squirt guns help?
Yeah, they would.
Councilor Lammerman.
Council President, Council, quick question in regards to the splash pad. When is that supposed to be complete? Because anybody who drives by can see it's not done. There's a big thing missing. What's the deal with that?
Mr. Stewart?
Council President, Councilor Lamb, are you referring to the water tower?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's part of the funding effort that Councilor Merida just presented. We had to reduce the overall cost of the construction of the park by nearly $400,000, and that item was a $350,000 bid item, so it was removed. The splash pad is operates without it. It's just an added feature in the future that will have an additional water opportunity to get splashed, and then also hopefully house a electronic reader board that can be seen by the public driving by. As far as when will it be open, there's a couple, 2 or 3 more things that need to be done. The staff has made some gates for a couple of the entrances directly off 10th Street that'll be in place. There's also an additional piece of steel structure to the water tower that needs to be added. And then our city crew, hopefully not this week, next week, will install a 2-inch water meter, upgrading our 3/4 inch to a 2-inch so that the water park will be ready to be operational. The water park is by state rules not supposed to open with less than 70-degree temperatures. So probably going to be towards the end of May, I assume, before we'll be looking at it. And Miss Nye and I'll be working on trying to get a ribbon cutting and get a schedule for it to be opened. I want to take this moment just to share another thing that was kind of cool today. Pacific Excavation installed the 2 swings seats for the swing set today, and one of these swings is for an infant and a parent to ride on, and they no longer had it installed, and there was a mother with her child utilizing that swing. So it was pretty cool to see that in a matter of minutes after being installed, it was already in use. So it's coming along. Hopefully I answered your question, Councilor Lamberman.
Yeah, for the most part. And then, so is it just due to lack of funding that the tower reservoir part had to be cut back, or was it inflationary issues, or because it kind of baffles me that a project would be approved, start going through, and then all of a sudden, hey, we don't have the funding anymore, so stuff has to be put on hold or cut back.
Yeah, sure. Councilor, that's a great question, Councilor Lamberman. So when the project was designed by Branch Engineering and David Doherty or DLA, they had a estimated engineer's estimate of $1.2 million to build a project. When we took the project out to bid and received the bids, we received 2 bids, one for 1.7 million and the other one was for 2.1 million. We were able to work with the company Pacific Excavation, who bid the 1.7, reduce the overall construction cost down to $1.3 million, and was able to award the contract. It had to do a lot of it with inflation. We were just coming out of COVID and some of the costs. It also might have been a little bit of the bidding time, because we didn't quite hit the really good window for when it's winter time. We were coming out of winter. It was spring when it got bid, because we had a tight window to award the contract and get locked in with the EDA. So both, I think probably not the best time to award was a concern, and also the escalating materials and labor costs that we've incurred over the last 4 years.
So that being said, I know that I've heard some, I guess I'd say scuttlebutt about it a little bit. If something like that can happen to such a small project in a sense, what's the possibility of us running into the same thing with our Main Street project?
Councilor President and Councilor Lamberman, well, it could have been a problem, but instead, our project was estimated to be 5.5 million to 6 million to the engineer's estimate for that project. We had 5 bids. and they ranged from the awarded bid of 5.1 to Wildish, upwards of $7 million. We just hit a really good favorable bidding time. It was, if I remember correctly, we went out to bids in December, late November, December, and opened them at the end of December. Very good time to bid. It's probably the best time to bid when companies are looking to fill their work schedule for the following year. We also saw some stabilization in the products. This project has to do a lot with concrete and that. So the companies that bid on it felt pretty strong about their material costs. And essentially we had some really good favorable bids. So this can happen to any project. But Main Street's already done, bidded, it's over, we're locked in on a price, except for things that change orders that we have to deal with. And we've had, I believe, $25,000 worth of change orders to date. And I don't expect anything major to take place other than we are entertaining burying or putting in the infrastructure to bury the overhead power lines on 6th Street so that the fire department can use their ladder truck throughout the entire Main Street in the future. That might be a decent change order that the council may see or may not.
And to that point, can you speak to, the time difference between when the engineers sign off and give the estimate to when bidding occurs? Is there a significant gap in that time where things can change and fluctuate, or is that typically pretty tight?
Council President, most of the time, the engineer's estimate is really established after the construction documents or within like 90%. So it's fairly close to the time of completing the construction documents to going out to bid. So I would point out a couple other things that were difficult with the Bohemia Park pieces is the splash pad, the actual construction of a round tower. There was just some things that were very expensive that the contractors that bid on weren't super comfortable with because it was kind of on the edge of what they do for everyday work. The Main Street project is just something that gets done all the time. It's that type of work is done day in and day out, whether it's ODOT or the cities or whatever. So, but to answer your question, those estimates are fairly close to the time that it actually goes out to bid.
Thank you. Councilor Sotomayor? Yeah, we're still on concerns of council.
A couple of things about April Child Abuse Prevention Month that I'd like to mention. April's getting towards the end, and at the same time, a couple of pretty big events are going to happen. Wednesday, April 30th, the Family Relief Nursery is inviting families and everybody in the community to come by Coiner Park from 1:30 to 3:30 and make a pinwheel and maybe plant a pinwheel and have some other activities. They'd like to just try and have a positive activity for families during this month. And so far, it says Thursday is going to be a crazy warm day. And if your family and anybody in the community would like to join a group up by the swimming pool parking lot, an event called the Great Ice Cream Bowl is happening, where people can walk or jog a course up there. And if you have littles, there are going to be small kid events held in the Harrison playground area. And afterwards, there's an ice cream sundae and drawing available for anybody. The cost is free. It's made also for a positive family event during this time. That one is, I'll have these. I have a few things for anybody who's interested in these, but essentially the Great Ice Cream Bowl starts at 4:00. I will warn people that we get a lot of energy around the Great Ice Cream Bowl. The Lincoln Middle School track team usually finds it positive in their schedule to show up, but we have had just a great fun with all of the energy that's around. And so we have people bringing infants in strollers, and we have just a wide range of the community who's chosen to come and do that. So if anybody wants information, I've got some to hand out. I'll just kind of walk around. But before I do, I'm still not quite familiar what we do during the proclamations. And I just noticed that we didn't say thanks to City Recorder Mindy Roberts. And I hope she has a wonderful special week. I hope that, maybe something happens around her desk or something during this week, or maybe we get a pranker later. I don't know, but thank you, Mindy.
Yes, we appreciate that reminder. Mindy does a wonderful job for us. Appreciate it. Any other comments? All right, we will transition into the business from the city manager and hear the city manager's report. Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening, Council President, and Councilmember Settlemeyer stole my thunder. I was going to thank both our city recorder and deputy city recorder. And yeah, one of the best things that ever happened to me since the time I've been in Cottage Grove was finding Mindy here when I arrived. I always joke that, I just do everything Mindy tells me to and life turns out swell, but that's not a joke. That's the truth. And I just want to tell you a huge thank you. You have made my life so much easier in the time that I've been here working with you. So thank you. And the only other thing that I would have, Council President, is just remind everybody that we do have a special meeting on Monday, May 5th. We'll be appointing the folks to the Budget Committee and also reviewing the City Council goals and objectives from the City Council retreat. So even though it's not normal, see you next Monday. That would conclude my report, Your Honor.
Thank you. And we are joined online with our city attorney. Oh, Council, before that, Councilor Mary Day.
So just to be clear, we don't have an agenda setting on the Friday before that special meeting?
No, we don't.
Councilor Lemmerman.
So is this kind of into the concerns from council? During the agenda meeting Friday, it was discussed about having something for the May 5th meeting in regards to the city council goals. Did we want to formally put something in place like a work session for that day to discuss some of those goals, or just kind of go with it willy-nilly on that day?
Well, the meeting has been noticed as a city council meeting. And as always with an agenda. And so the agenda does include those two items, the appointment to the folks on the Budget Committee and the discussion of the City Council goals and objectives.
And I think the council.
I just mean, because I too would like a little bit more clarity on some of the goals, because in my opinion, they're fairly vague. And there was some topics brought up about kind of putting more of a hard line on things like numbers and actual set goals to kind of reach. I just didn't know if we wanted to do a formal work session to try to set some of those actual goals for those goals that we have.
Well, that certainly can be part of your discussion. That's why we provided you with copies of the PowerPoint presentation. And so you have all of the details. You've got, a week or so to look through them. So I would encourage council members to do just that. Go through the goals. And if there, are things where you think that we're up at a 10,000-foot view and we need to come down to ground level on something, that's certainly part of the conversation.
Okay.
Settlemyer.
Excuse me. You mentioned something about it being a work session. I really looking through those, I think it gives us so much opportunity to everybody go and just own what we're putting there. And I hope we treat the next meeting as a work session. And when we get done, we won't get done, is what I hope even. Because I think as soon as we go and we go through a process, bringing in that kind of information, that we'll want to sit and gestate on that. And maybe the next meeting, the next time we do it, or maybe that's when we do a subcommittee, or maybe that's when we do a work session. But yeah, there's a lot there, and I think it could be great.
So I do want to remind of a couple of things. So the meeting, maybe 10 minutes for the first item, and then we have, the rest of the meeting. So functionally, it could serve as a work session. There is a consideration, however, that the budget cycle and process is coming up. So I think we should consider, it may not be a perfect product, but it doesn't have to be the finished product, but it does need to be something that directs staff, effectively for the next year. And to that, it's, take the goals as they are, mark them up with all of our thoughts and ideas. We're going to collaborate and try to say, what can we issue as soon as possible, and then always be revisiting. Cool. All right. Ms. Connolly, are you on?
It's a process to get off to become a panelist. So
We're going to try to adjust the mic because we can't, or with the speakers. One moment. All right. Try to speak again.
can you hear me now?
Nothing.
Am I a bit, or you're not catching me?
Try again.
Good evening. Hi. Can you hear me?
Reset the power coupling. Try to say something again and see if we can hear you.
Hi, good evening. Is it working now?
It's working through Councilor Lammerman's iPad.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I think we're here.
I would be happy to just type in the chat of 2 items that I was going to report on. If that works.
I think we might be able to just barely hear you, so if we could proceed.
Okay, I'll talk up. All I wanted to say is that while I have little to report this evening, I did work behind the scenes with many staff on items that came before you tonight. So I appreciate that opportunity. And just know I wanted to assure the council that the chronic nuisance ordinance that we had hoped to present this evening, we were waiting on it to get it into a more final version. Even if you don't act on it when we first introduce it, at least it will address various questions that were posed through this process. That's all, but it's been a pleasure to be here this evening. Thanks.
So I didn't make the substantive part of that out. What, you were working on something?
Chronic nuisance ordinance remains in process.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Connolly? All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
There are no items removed from the agenda, so we are adjourned.